Sweeter, bolder, better.
In 1985, Coca-Cola became New Coke, changing its secret formula and unleashing a public backlash. Here are 10 reasons why New Coke is the most controversial drink in the world.
Sounds controversial.
Brave New Soda.
Good grief.
New Coke.
The words New Coke still evoke strong feelings among many Coca-Cola fans who wish the whole sordid saga had been nothing but a bad dream. Sadly, it was all too real, and it might have been the biggest self-inflicted public relations blunder committed by a major American company ever. The executives at Coca-Cola were afraid that Pepsi Cola's clever attempts to brand itself as the choice of the younger, hipper generation was a serious threat to their profits. This fear caused them to overcompensate and take the unprecedented move of making a big deal out of changing Coke's vaunted secret formula. To make matters worse, they changed it so it would be sweeter and taste more like, well, Pepsi. The big idea over at Coca-Cola HQ was basically to surrender to Pepsi and seemingly concede that their soda tasted better. If all this sounds a bit surreal to you, then you're not alone. Fans of Coca-Cola didn't even wait to try New Coke because this wasn't about taste so much as it was about belief in the brand. If they wanted to drink a cola that was like Pepsi, they'd drink Pepsi. How the people at Coca-Cola didn't see this coming is a little perplexing, and it's surprising that no one was fired for this blunder.
Suppose it could happen to anyone.
Bottlers of the world unite.
Assemble.
In the midst of the New Coke fiasco, Coca-Cola was reminded just how important the bottlers really are. It's because of the bottling factories that customers can find their favorite Coca-Cola products on supermarket shelves. Coca-Cola does not own or completely control the army of bottling plants that actually fill and distribute the millions of bottles of cola that the company sells all around the world every year. The bottlers had quite a bit of leverage over Coca-Cola back in the 1980s, and many of them exploited this fact when the negative customer reviews for New Coke started coming in. A group of disgruntled bottlers band together and went to Coca-Cola's headquarters in Atlanta to complain about New Coke. Some of them were understandably perturbed that they found out about the switch to New Coke not from Coca-Cola, but on the radio. The Coca-Cola Bottlers Association entered the fray as well to strongly recommend that Coca-Cola reverse course and bring back the original formula. This pushback was a serious problem for the giant soda company because it needed the cooperation of the bottlers to get its products on the shelves. The bottlers played a role in the New Coke fiasco being reversed.
I'm not even sorry.
Cosby to the max.
Because New Coke has a better, more modern taste than.
Before comedian Bill Cosby became an advertising pariah, he was a sought-after pitchman in the 1980s and was well known for his Jell-O pudding pop commercials at the time. He also appeared in a number of Coca-Cola commercials touting the soft drink's superior taste when compared to its biggest rival, Pepsi. Pepsi's cola was known to be noticeably sweeter than Coke, so when the advertisements for New Coke hyped the product's new, sweeter flavor, Cosby objected. At least in this case, the comedian displayed integrity by quitting Coca-Cola. He argued that he'd lost all credibility while touting New Coke, a soda that was much too similar to Pepsi. This move made little sense to Cosby, or to many of Coke's loyal customers. Pepsi was the rival drink Coca-Cola had worked so hard to separate itself from, but then it decided to try to mimic it with the new formula. Coca-Cola was left without a pitchman, but Cosby's exit presented the company with an opportunity to go in a new direction. To fill the void left by Cosby's exit, Coca-Cola started using Max Headroom as its virtual pitchman. The creators talked up Headroom as a digital AI character, but the reality for the smooth-talking commentator was more mundane. Max was actually played by an actor named Matt Frewer wearing prosthetics and makeup. Bill Cosby's exit and Max Headroom's virtual smile are one of the reasons why New Coke is the most controversial drink in the world. If you're not already a BabbleTop subscriber, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Thanks!
How about a new Coke to celebrate?
Re-Rebranding.
Woo, rebranding.
That just means admitting failure, Dad.
In 1985, Coca-Cola was selling the most popular cola in the world when the company decided to shake things up. Coca-Cola changed the secret formula and rebranded its signature soda. New Coke was created to replace Coke, but to put it mildly, things didn't go as the company planned, or at least hoped they would. An immediate backlash from customers and bottlers shook the company, and it scrambled to figure out how to do damage control. Even though New Coke sold well, the negative reaction was too big to ignore, and Coca-Cola panicked. After doing some soul-searching, the company decided to bring back the iconic original formula, but it wasn't called Coke anymore. The original Coca-Cola was rebranded Coke Classic, and the company hoped the controversy was behind them. New Coke became Coke 2, while Coke Classic remained Coke Classic. In 2002, the company dropped the Classic from the name and returned to using the moniker of just Coke. At the same time, the company announced that Coke 2 would finally be discontinued. By this time, everyone was sick of all this nonsense and just wanted to drink a familiar Coke.
Ooh, you taste familiar.
Respect your elders.
Respect your elder.
Old Cola Drinkers of America was an actual group, and its members had a few opinions about Coca-Cola's ill-fated decision to replace their favorite beverage with New Coke. However, the OCDA group wasn't satisfied with this relatively innocuous tactic, so they decided to take a more direct approach. In the great tradition of the Sons of Liberty, who dumped a shipment of British tea into Boston Harbor, the grassroots group poured bottles of offending soda into sewers. You know a company has made a serious error indeed when its customers are literally pouring its product down the drain. One Coke drinker went as far as filing a lawsuit to try to force Coca-Cola to sell its original formula. Perhaps the plaintiff and other Coke drinkers found some relief when, less than 3 months later, the company cried uncle and announced it was rushing the original formula to stores under the name Coke Classic. How much did the OCDA influence Coca-Cola's decision to bring back the original Coke? It's difficult to know for sure, but the grassroots group made its voice heard, and this was before social media was around to amplify the message. Regardless, the message came through loud and clear that people were unhappy with New Coke and wanted the company to do something about it.
Besides, audiences love happy endings.
Pepsi Fizzled.
Pepsi would also be acceptable.
Coca-Cola's biggest rival, Pepsi, tried to characterize its competitor's switch to New Coke as a victory for its sweeter-tasting cola. Pepsi's marketing ploy included an aggressive advertising campaign to brag that it had won the so-called Cola Wars. It was certainly entertaining, even if it wasn't that effective in the end. The campaign boasted smug lines like, "Now I know why Coke did it."
Now I know why.
Despite Pepsi's entertaining commercials, Coca-Cola was not in the bad shape that Pepsi wanted soda drinkers to believe. In fact, sales of New Coke and Coke Classic were better than Pepsi's sales in 1985. Cherry Coke was also released that year, and it also sold well. It seems that some Coke drinkers who didn't warm up to New Coke chose to drink Cherry Coke as a stopgap measure. Only a few months after New Coke hit shelves, Coke Classic, aka the original Coke, was offered to customers. Even though they could get their favorite cola once again, the whole thing left a bad taste in many people's mouths. Some people were even getting a little paranoid, wondering if Coke Classic really was the original formula or if Coca-Cola was still playing games.
This Coke tastes like Pepsi.
New Coke on the market.
What about New Coke?
The Coca-Cola Company is a successful business that has made huge amounts of money selling soda to people all around the world. As strange as it seems, after all the objections and recriminations that came later, the people who ran Coca-Cola thought making the cola sweeter and rebranding it as New Coke was a no-brainer with no downside. Even with the controversy, it turned out it was a good business decision because the company's sales did rise after New Coke was released. However, the gushing fountain of bad publicity took Coca-Cola by surprise and hurt the brand. The soft drink company suffered a serious blow as New Coke became a case study in how to create a public relations disaster. However, because it is a business, the bottom line is what ultimately matters. The company could have introduced New Coke while keeping its original Coke, but this would have complicated its business arrangements. Coca-Cola decided that the best way to hold on to its very profitable fountain drink market share was to stay with one drink. The executives believed having both New Coke and the original Coke would not be palatable to the fast food restaurants or to Coke lovers. The decision to replace Coke with New Coke ended up causing a lot of consternation among Coca-Cola's customers who just wanted to keep drinking their favorite soda.
I'm gonna go get a soda.
Pepsi Challenged.
Challenge accepted.
The largest soft drink company on the planet changed the formula of its best-selling soda because it became paranoid about its competitor. Pepsi was Coca-Cola's chief competition, and the soft drink company came up with a clever marketing campaign. The company conducted blind taste tests pitting Pepsi against Coke and then made commercials about the test because the results were favorable to Pepsi. This Pepsi Challenge revealed that more Americans preferred the sweeter taste of Pepsi to Coke. Pepsi convinced a certain number of Coca-Cola drinkers they should be part of the Pepsi generation, and these commercials awarded Coke's rival with a growing share of the cola market in the 1970s and 1980s. Much to Coca-Cola's chagrin, its own taste tests came up with the same result as Pepsi's did. This information set the soda giant on a fateful course. In 1985, New Coke debuted, and the company appeared to be completely oblivious to the notion that its loyal customers might object to having their favorite drink altered to taste more like the competition's cola. Coke Classic was the company's attempt to remedy the mistake by reintroducing what a few months before was just called Coke. Pepsi had challenged Coca-Cola, and the soda giant panicked, causing itself and its customers quite a bit of turmoil.
Well, anyone would be nervous with all the economic turmoil you read about in the...
New Diet Coke.
You want a Diet Coke?
Diet Coke debuted in 1982 to compete with Diet Pepsi. Coca-Cola felt it needed a direct competitor, even though the company had been selling the Diet Cola, Tab, since 1963. Diet Pepsi was outselling Tab, so the time was right for a true Diet Coke. Surprisingly, Tab was able to hang on for another 20 years after Diet Coke was put on the supermarket shelves. Calorie-free Diet Coke, with its distinct white and red can, became a popular alternative to Coke for people who wanted to cut their calories. When Coca-Cola decided it was going to change the formula of its signature soda, Diet Coke came in handy. The new Coke formula was actually a sweetened version of the formula for Diet Coke. None of this made a lot of sense to Coke drinkers who seemed to be perfectly happy with Coke and Diet Coke. And don't forget Tab. Coca-Cola executives never explained why its loyal customers should be happy with their favorite soda being altered to taste more like the cola they don't drink. At least they left Diet Coke alone. It's interesting that Diet Coke's formula was the starting point for New Coke. Diet Coke has continued to sell well in its original form, as far as we know, and Coke became Coke again. Today, a bottle of Coke has the words Original Taste printed in small letters on the label.
Jeepers, that's sugary even for my taste.
Coke Classic versus New Coke. The damage control Coca-Cola had to deal with was almost as silly as the original decision to change Coke to New Coke. The CEO of the company even appeared in a television commercial in a lame attempt to appease disgruntled customers. He tried to pass off the huge dust-up the change had caused as a minor misunderstanding and insisted that the new formula was an improvement and popular with consumers. It's true that sales of New Coke were strong, but much of these sales could be attributed to the strong brand loyalty Coca-Cola had enjoyed up to this point. Nevertheless, the CEO and the other Coca-Cola executives felt it was necessary to bring back the original Coke formula under the name Coke Classic. Coke Classic was an admission that the original formula was still very much on the minds and taste buds of Coke drinkers, and that New Coke might have been an epic blunder. The company couldn't admit the blunder, but it did move away from touting its new product's flavor by comparing it with its arch-rival, Pepsi. By trying to please everyone, it seemed like Coca-Cola pleased almost no one. The speedy introduction of Coke Classic was seen as the company admitting they made a mistake. The New Coke versus Coke Classic tug-of-war is a reminder that the old adage, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, should be considered before making changes of this magnitude. Thirsty for more? Just tap or click another video. First time here? Then hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell.